Hi, welcome to a new reading vlog. This week, hold on, cut. This week I'm really trying to focus on finishing books that I wanted to get to before the end of the year. Oh, package got delivered. 'Tis the season, am I right? So I have my 23 and 23 list right here. Kind of terms with the fact that I'm not going to finish these, and that's honestly fine. I usually have some left over, and in that case, I've always taken the ones that are left over, and those ones have to go into next year's. So they'll just go towards 24 and 24. That's fine with me, like no pressure at all for that, but I would like to try to get to some of them. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 left. Not bad if you ask me. One is The Song of Achilles, Game of Thrones, Atomic Habits, Pride and Prejudice, The No-Show, Happy Place, and Do I Know You. So Happy Place and Do I Know You are two most anticipated that I put over here because I really wanted to get to them. So Happy Place I was waiting to get on paperback, but apparently it's like never going to be released on paperback, so I guess I'll just listen to that on audio now, which kind of sucks, but I refuse to buy a hardcover of that. I'm number 1 for the audiobook on my library right now, and it says that it should be only like no more than like a week. So hopefully I get it even before then and I'm able to read it this week. That would be super like fun because that checks off a 23 and an anticipated release. Do I Know You, my library actually just got in like October, so it took them a really long time to pick that one up, which I get. I feel like it wasn't a super popular release, so totally understandable, but it is only on ebook. I'm fine with that, but I do definitely, especially with how busy I am like this time of the year, I feel like I would really rather have it on audio, just to like pop it in while I'm like wrapping presents or baking or like doing something else. Romance especially, I don't find that I like need to have it physically, so I wish that one was, I could get my hands on it on audio. So I don't know if I'm gonna get to that one, honestly. The No-Show, I talked about this a lot in my like end of year books I want to get to by the end of the year video. The No-Show my library doesn't have, and I don't really want to buy it, so that one I don't really know what to do about it, because I don't really want to buy it to be honest, because I've always been kind of on the fence with Beth O'Leary, so I don't know if it's something that I actually am like I don't really want to invest in it when it's kind of a hit or miss author. And my library does not have it. I've recommended it a ton of times. I've requested it a ton of times. They don't have it like in the actual library, Hoopla, Libby, nothing. So I'm not really sure what to do about that one. Right now, I probably won't carry that one over because it's literally like impossible for me to get my hands on without buying. And I don't want to buy it, so. Pride and Prejudice. I have gotten about halfway through Pride and Prejudice at the beginning of the year. And it is a really quick read, so I'd be fine with like finishing that one. I just don't know if I'll have the time. Atomic Habits I'm definitely going to get to. I have it on audio and physically, so I'll definitely like read that one. And that will check off this goal, and I have another goal of reading 6 non-fictions this entire year, and I'm only 1 away from that, so I kind of have to read this to complete that goal. Game of Thrones I've been listening to almost all year. I'm not kidding. This book has taken me forever to get through. Not because it's bad, it's just a fat book and there's so much information, and at first I was trying to annotate it and I was like really paying attention, trying to annotate everything and like remember all these connections and the history of like all these places and all these names and everything. And then eventually I was like, if it's gonna take forever if I sit here and annotate this book. And because the first season is so similar to the first book, I feel like I kind of knew everything already. Like everything was so familiar to me. I wasn't really learning anything super new, that I decided to just like listen to it and not super strictly annotate. If there was any new information or anything that I felt was like really relevant, I did go in and like circle it or tab it or whatever, but there wasn't really a lot. So that one I'm definitely gonna finish because I only have 2 hours left. And I listen on like 2 times speed, so I'll probably finish that today. Not even kidding. So that one's definitely gonna get done, and that one will help check off my Pop Sugar Challenge as well. So I already finished the main Pop Sugar Challenge, but the little like extra advanced portion, one of the prompts is read the longest book on your TBR, which for me was Game of Thrones. So that'll help check that off, and that way I'll have completed like even the advanced section of the Pop Sugar Challenge which I would never do again, by the way. Song of Achilles, I don't think I'm gonna get to. I was going to pick up Song of Achilles for my reading books that'll make me cry video, and honestly I just couldn't get into it, but I know it's a book that I'm gonna enjoy. I think it's just not the right time. I don't know what it is. I just haven't been in the mood for kind of like more like historical kind of books like that. The fantasy elements obviously I like a lot, but I don't know, I'm just not in the mood for something like that, and I haven't been for a while, so I'm gonna wait to pick that one up because I don't want to like force myself to read it at the wrong time and then not enjoy it because of that. So I'm gonna hold off on that one, and I'm honestly fine with that decision. So for sure Game of Thrones and Atomic Habits and Happy Place, probably for sure those three, and then that only leaves 4 left, and honestly I'm fine with that. I don't feel as bad when I don't complete this because I know that I'm just gonna roll like them over into 24 and 2024, and it's not super strict because the books, like, they're just books, like they can be pushed to the next year. But what I do feel bad about is I also had some like reading goals over here, and these ones I can't really push, like you can't really push it over, like that's weird. You can't, like, especially when it's a specific number, if you get close to that number you'd have to adjust it for next year, so it's, you can't really push it over like a yearly goal. Not so much just like, oh, I want to read this book, but like a goal. And so I have, the only 3 that I have left are, out of 6 nonfiction books. I have, if I read Atomic Habits, that's done, so I'm going to finish that one. Then I have finished all completed series. Now, the only one that I have left is Illuminae. And I know that if I really tried, I could finish them this month, because I finished all other completed series, and I'd hate for that goal to go to waste just because of one series. Like when I've spent so much time this year trying to finish series that are complete, and, you know, DNFing series that I don't want to continue in anymore, and like putting a lot of effort into finishing series or catching up in all my series, and it would suck if just one series like blew that up. It would just suck, right? So part of me wants to focus less on like Pride and Prejudice and books like that, and try to focus on reading Illuminae, because that would complete it. And I've said in my, like, I think I said in my completed or series I'm in the middle of video, that I really wanted them physically, but like, and I stand by that, but I just like, I don't know what to do, because one series, 2 books, granted they're fat but they go by quick, like that's gonna stop this whole thing, so I don't know what to do. The ones with the X are ones that I've decided to not continue in. The ones that are all like checked off or highlighted are obviously ones that I'm done with, and there's some of them that aren't completed, so that's fine. But the only one that's completed that I'm in the middle of is Illuminae. Then the only other goal that I have left is owned unread books. So getting my physical TBR down to 30. I have gotten it down to 39. Game of Thrones and then the 2 Christmas romances will bring that down to 35 then. So then I only need to read 5 books to complete that goal. I have a chart for everything in this thing. If I look at my physical TBR, I've read a lot this year and I've unhauled a ton. But it's like there's none that are really like calling my name. Also, a lot of the books in my physical TBR that I have left are, oh, Atomic Habits will take one off too because I own that. So never mind, that's 4 books actually. That leaves only 4 books to get to my goal of 30. But a lot of them are classics. I'm gonna take some time, obviously, think about it, figure out a game plan, and that's what this vlog will be. We'll be trying to read as many books as possible to get to, you know, reach those goals, and that'll be kind of the plan this month. So I have some presents to wrap, so I'm going to do that and finish Game of Thrones. Look at what just came in. I finally, after like a year, I think, of reading this, finished a Game of Thrones. I don't even know how to rate this because on its own, it's 5 stars. But if I take into account my personal reading experience, then it'd probably be a 4. I think that, and I said this earlier, I think that it would have been a 5 if I had never seen the show. And not to say the show's better than the books, but I've seen season 1 maybe 10 times, and the first book and the first season follow each other really, really well. After that, the next book, what is it called? Season of Swords? Storm of Swords? Or Clash of Kings. But the next one from there, it follows it still pretty well, but not as much. 3, not as much, and then it goes down to pretty much not following at all. This is the one that follows the most closely. Almost every single chapter, there is some episode that is matched to it, which can't be said for any book after this. There's a really good chart on Reddit, if you're interested, that shows the exact chapter to episode relations, and you can just see it dwindle after the first book, and it's really, really interesting. So having seen the first season so many times, it felt like I've read this 10 times before. It felt like this was a reread. Yeah, there's some new information, obviously you're getting a lot more information in here, but nothing that, not a lot at least, that doesn't eventually reveal itself in later seasons. So I don't know, yeah, there was more history in here, so I learned a little bit more about the religion and the history and the world building and background of certain characters, and there was a lot more to it, obviously. This is an 800-page book compared to a 10-episode season. There's gonna be a lot, but a lot of it, I will say, was fluff. Just details that didn't necessarily, in my opinion, matter as much. There were a lot that did, obviously, but a lot, in my opinion, that didn't at the same time. So it was a lot of fluff as well. And so reading this, being so familiar with what happens in this exact story, it felt like I was rereading a book for the 10th time that's a non-favorite, which is exhausting. But the book itself, if I'm looking at it, stepping away from my personal experience, then it would be probably a 5, but I think I'm gonna give it a 4 just because I tend to rate things based on my personal experience with it. Will I continue is the question of the most importance, and I don't know. My husband asked me that last night, actually, because I was like, oh, I'm almost done, because we're both reading this. He's right there. But I was like, I don't know. Part of me wants to, because I feel like it would only get better, because I haven't seen season 2 10 times. 3 or 4 times, maybe? And from there, it just gets less and less and less. And past season 3, I think I've only seen it all 1 time. Well, I know I've only seen it all 1 time. So it would be less familiar, so I think I would be more engaged and interested in the story. But that's a big commitment. That series is a big commitment. And I don't know if I necessarily want to commit to it, especially because it's not done yet. And so if I read one, and then I have to wait, that just annoys me so much. So I might wait to see what happens with the series, if you know what I mean, what ends up actually being released and not. Part of me is oh my god, this was such a slog to get through and I don't want to continue. But I think it was only a slog because I'm so familiar with it that I was yeah, I know, no big surprises, no new information, blah, 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 I know this already. The second book definitely wouldn't feel that way since I'm less familiar with the season of the show and the story overall. And it would be interesting because after this book, they start to differ, right? So season 2 doesn't follow the book as closely. So there would be more differences for me to be able to pick out and be oh, that's different, where in here that only happened a handful of times and it was small things. I'm just gonna have to see. If I ever feel like it, I'll pick it up, but I'm not necessarily committing to this series. My hold came in for Happy Place literally almost maybe 5 minutes after I finished filming that clip, which was wild. I might pick that one up next, or I'll pick up Atomic Habits because I already have on loan, so I think it returns in 10 days. So I'll probably try to read that first since I have 21 days with Happy Place now, which I won't need that long, but you know what I mean. Or maybe both at the same time because Atomic Habits I'll want to read physically since it's non-fic. There you go. I feel like I always look like the scrubbiest person in the world. So I stayed up until 3 in the morning last night finishing Illuminae. Not because I felt oh, I need to finish it by tomorrow, but literally because I couldn't put it down. I forgot how amazing this book is. I literally spent all day yesterday in between kind of trying to spend time with my husband on a Sunday. I was trying to have a cozy day at home, but every single 5 seconds I'd be hold on, this is amazing, what? And I've read this before. So that's what's wild to me, is I get very scared with rereads of favorites. That's because I'm scared that I'm gonna reread it and I'm not gonna feel the same about it, or something's gonna like spoil it for me. Like something's gonna ruin it for me. And this is one that I was very, very scared for that. Like with. Like I was very scared that I was gonna read this and feel kind of about it, not really want to continue in this series. Nope. I literally tried to find out if there's a way that I can email the person who has the hold of the library on Gemini, so I can ask them to return it ASAP, because it says it might not be here for 2 more weeks. And I'm like, okay, but if you're not gonna read it, or you know, like let's like, come on, because I can't get enough. Like I literally felt weird like waking up today and not like being in this world again. I almost felt like it was real. Like this is so immersive. This is so just such a good story. So it is still 5 stars, 100%. If I could give it more, I would. And people say that Gemini, I don't want to say people necessarily say it's better, but I've heard quite a few people say they prefer it, or that it was like a matched sequel. So that's really exciting, and I'm excited to see how I feel about it, because obviously I've been waiting to read it since I read this in 2016, and I was always holding off on the ebook. But now that I got a new phone, the reading on my phone is actually more clear than reading on my Kindle. So that's where I read Memento, was on my phone, and it was really clear. So I was like, oh, I'll be able to read this sort of formatting on my phone and it'll be fine. I've also heard some people say that since Memento came out last, even though it's a prequel, you actually should read it after you read all 3, because there's little Easter eggs of different people and scenes and things in Memento. And I only caught on to a couple. So I'm almost thinking, since it's only like 60 pages, I might, after I'm done with the whole series, go back and read Memento again, just to see if there's any little Easter eggs or any like information that seemed irrelevant at the time but now might be like really, really relevant. Then I forgot to update because I was like just not having a good day. I was having cramps galore, but I did manage through those, because being a woman, to clean the house on Friday. And I only have like an hour left of Happy Place. Definitely gonna just try to finish that today. I'm super sad to say I'm really not enjoying this at all. I am not feeling the chemistry between the 2 main characters. I'm not really, it's all based on miscommunication. I just don't understand it. Like, they were engaged, they broke up, they didn't tell anybody, and then their friends wanted to all get together for their annual trip, and now they're stuck there together having to like fake date. So it's like fake dating / second chance almost. The chemistry and the scenario, and it's not working for me. Like, this might be my least favorite Emily Henry ever, but this one, I don't even know if I would buy it. Like, I don't get it. I don't really find the love interest, like, I'm not swoony over him or anything. Like, there's nothing really that he is saying that I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Like, part of me is like, why are you not fighting for her given all that's happened? So that's annoying. I'm kind of like, okay, so you're just kind of like being a little bitch, you know? Like, you're not really like stepping up to the plate and like, you know, taking accountability for things and trying to fight for her. And then she's also kind of being a little bitch. So it's just like, I just like don't see it. I just want to like reach to the book and be like, okay, why don't you guys just sit down, since you're both like adults, like literally like 30 years old. Why don't you just sit down and talk? And this would have been solved in like 5 seconds. Like, it just, oh, there's nothing worse than miscommunication. And I know a lot of people feel that way. So now I understand why this book is hit or miss. Because most Emily Henrys, I would say, lean towards the hit for people. But there's of course a ton of people that also don't like certain tropes. But this one seems very 50-50, and I always wondered why. I thought it was just like haters. You know, as like an author gets more popular, I feel like they have a lot of like hate reviews and shit. But no, I get it. Like, this one is very, very odd. I'm really interested to see how I feel about her next release. Funny story. That plot sounds a little more up my alley, and I think that that one could be redeeming. I think that I would really like that one. I've already liked more Emily Henry than I've disliked, so she's definitely an author I'll continue to read from regardless of like anything, honestly. But this one, I think it might be my least favorite. I'm just not getting it. I'm not seeing it. So I'm not rooting for it. So I don't care, you know? Which sucks. This is my most anticipated book of the entire year. I could cry a river. I'll finish that book today for sure. And then I realized in my like binge read of this over the weekend, I forgot that my hold for Atomic Habits goes back in like now I think 4 days. I'm not reading a physical book right now, so part of me is like, okay, I'll just read that one. But I really don't want to. But that would finish 2 goals because I still need to read another nonfiction before the end of the year. So I'll clean the house, finish Happy Place, we can debrief. It's not looking good though. And then I'll probably read Atomic Habits. Okay, enough talking, people. Stop talking to me, stop talking to me. Let's get into it. That was by far the worst Emily Henry I've ever read. 2 stars? If you can honestly believe it. I feel like I can't. I feel like I'm in denial or something. I stand by everything I said last update. I only had 2 hours left, so not a lot changed. The ending made it worse though. When we last saw each other, it was sitting at probably a 3, right? Like, it had some redeeming qualities, but overall it was like, eh. But the ending? What? I feel like my thoughts right now are so jumbled because I can't believe that ended up being 2 stars. By far the biggest disappointment of the year. I make a video at the end, or really at the beginning of every single year, talking about like the biggest disappointments and the worst books and the best books of the year and all that. And this one definitely, I can already tell you, biggest disappointment. The characters were so boring. I wasn't rooting for a single one of them. The love interest, like, he had 0 personality. I don't understand. And like, he's been through a lot, but he still was giving nothing. And like, the conclusion was just so odd to me, and the wrap up was absolutely terrible. I'm so confused. Like, I don't think I'm ever gonna buy this book. This was so disappointing. This was so frustrating. It honestly gave me nothing. Like, the whole story itself, I'm just so, ugh. I literally just finished it a couple minutes ago, so I'm so sorry if my thoughts are so like jumbled, but that's honestly kind of just how I feel about this story anyways. Like, what was that? I'm gonna put like a little spoiler tag in, but honestly, like, let's talk about that ending really quick, right? So you want me to believe that she literally is in like her last year of med school, something like that. Like, I want to say she had like a year to go to becoming a fucking brain surgeon. Like, she was already doing it, so she must have been in like residency. Like, she was like done. Like, she had like a year to go, like, to complete it. And she gives it up to go do pottery in Montana to be with the guy. And I'm not saying that in life you can't change your mind about things. She realized that she felt like she was only becoming a surgeon because her parents told her that's what she should do. I'm not saying you can't change your mind. But I'm saying you just went through a decade of medical school and you have 1 year left. Bruh, even if my parents told me I had to become a surgeon, I would just become a surgeon. Like, at that point, I would just like finish the credentials at least. Like, finish the year, get the credentials, and then done and did what I wanted to do, but was able to like fall back on still becoming or getting a job as a surgeon. Do you know what I mean? Like, he didn't even give her enough, in my opinion, to justify up and moving out of like med school in San Francisco to go be with him in Montana. Like, in my opinion, he didn't give her enough for her to be like, oh yeah, like, I'm gonna leave and pick up my life to go be with you in Montana. First of all, we got some questions. So it's just like confusing to me how she would, like, what is she basing that decision off of when he gave her nothing? That's madness. And like, I get it, right? Like, you are able to change your mind. Like, it's life. Like, you're able to change your mind. If you don't want to do something or you feel pressured to do something and you're like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, that's literally like the point of life. Like, you live, you learn, you change your mind about things. Like, things change. But this was just like stupid. Like, to me, it didn't make sense with what we know with her like character, and it felt like Emily Henry like got to the end and then was like, oh fuck, like, I have to wrap this up somehow, so like, let's just like make her quit to make them together. I just didn't see it. Like, it wasn't believable. Their chemistry wasn't believable, and I don't believe, based on what he said to her, which was nothing, like I said, I don't believe that it was enough to like change her mind about her entire life. Because it's not like he went on this like grand, you know, like gesture. He didn't grand gesture her. We didn't see that. So it's just, I don't know. It was just weird. Like, it was a romance, but honestly, it spent more time talking about the friendship. So really, it kind of leans more towards like literary fiction to me, because the romance wasn't really like the front and center part, in my opinion. I felt like it was at least 50-50 with the friendships. And I like it, it's cute. It's just not what I expected, obviously, going into a romance novel. And a lot of the friend characters felt, like, give or take a few, felt really boring and flat to me. So then it's like, I didn't really care about them either. Really disappointed. I waited all year to read this because I was like, oh, I'm gonna wait to get it on, you know, paperback if it ever comes out, and I'm gonna read it physically because I just want to like savor it that way. No, I'm glad I listened to this on audio. This morning when I was sipping my coffee, I got pretty far actually, like almost halfway, 40-some% in Atomic Habits. I'm not liking this one either. Like, what is going on with me? He made his whole point in the first like 3 chapters, and now it's just repetitive. And he's really just saying the same thing over again in like a different way. It's very redundant. It literally feels like when you're trying to make your essay longer and you have like a word count that you need to get to, and so you just keep like kind of like saying the same thing in different ways. What's frustrating is I really liked the first couple chapters. Like, I really liked what he had to say. I was kind of like, oh, you know, that does make a lot of sense. I might start implementing something like that. But now he's just repeating it over and over, and so it's making me feel like this could have been like an article, like one article or one podcast instead of a whole book. You know, it's just feeling a little redundant. But I'm hoping that that's just because we're at the beginning, and so we're kind of seeing a repeat, because at the beginning he kind of like overviews everything. And so I'm hoping, since I'm only through the first part out of 4, that the first part is kind of just reinstating those first couple ideas that he had. And I'm hoping once we get into it further, it will bring new ideas that he didn't discuss as much in kind of the introductory chapters. It's just personally not doing a ton for me, but I'm hoping that that picks up, like I said. So I haven't made any more progress in Atomic Habits, so can't talk about that. But since one of my reading goals for the year was to get my physical TBR down to 30, I'm only like 3 away from it. So yesterday I'd finished up Happy Place, and so I wanted a new audiobook because I like having one physical book, one audiobook at a time usually. And so I was looking through my physical TBR to see if there were any on there that I would feel fine just listening to and not annotating. Like, if there were any that I didn't want to annotate. Like I've said before, the problem at this point is that almost all my physical TBR are classics at this point, or books that I really want to annotate. So it's kind of hard to like find the time to like read them because it just takes so much longer, you know? So I was going through, and there are a couple that I'm fine with not annotating. And one of those was Because of Winn-Dixie. I picked this up at the library book sale like 2 years ago, I want to say. It's in super good condition. I loved the movie when I was younger, but I had never read the book, so I thought it would be a good one to pick up. I'm always looking for books to build like our future kids' library, which I know is like psycho behavior, but it's really important to me that they have like a lot of books, and I think that starting to build it now, because kids' books are expensive nowadays, just makes the most sense. Regardless, that's something I like to do. So picked this up and decided to read it since I never had. The audiobook's 2 hours long, so on 2 times speed. It was only an hour, so I listened to it yesterday when I was picking up the house and whatnot, and I actually didn't like it. It's okay. I don't really get all the hype, all the awards and stuff. I don't really understand that. And I read a lot of middle grade. I read a lot of children's literature. And this one, in comparison to others that I've read this year or last year or just recently, it just seemed really bland in comparison to those ones. I don't even know if I'm gonna like hold on to it. I might pass it along in like a free library or the Buy Nothing group in my neighborhood or something. I don't even know if it's one that I would necessarily even hold on to. It's a sweet story, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying in comparison to other middle grade books that I've read recently, this one seemed really forgettable in my opinion. And it's one of those rare instances that I felt like the movie did a better job of presenting the themes and the message that it wanted to. That was terrifying. It was the rest of my Christmas presents, but there was no need to be that, like, aggressive. Why did he need to throw them? Anyways, yes, so I just feel like the movie did a better job of presenting the, like, message and the overall morals that this book was trying to press on its reader or audience. I don't know. I think I'm gonna pass this one along. It just wasn't for me. I know a lot of people absolutely treasure this book, but it just wasn't for me. Probably gonna pass this one along. I'm sure someone else will really appreciate it, but I did read it, so that's one less off my physical TBR, which was nice because it was only like an hour long. So I need to finish Atomic Habits, and then I'm still waiting at the library to get Gemina and Obsidio to finish Illuminate, because that'll finish the series one. This one finishes a 23 in 2023 and my 6 nonfictions for the year. And then I need to find 2 now, after this, more books to read for my physical TBR. I don't even know if it's possible, but we will try to make it happen, people. We are gonna try. I don't get it. Like, I don't understand the hype around this book. I understand how for some people it would really, really resonate. I just watched a couple TikToks about it just to see, like, what am I missing? Like, am I missing anything? And a lot of people seem to say that this, like, absolutely changed their life. I can see how, like, I understand, but for me, it just didn't do a lot. It was motivational. I made, like, quite a few tabs. There's maybe, like, 10 tabs of, you know, quotes or ideas, concepts that I liked and could see myself implementing, but overall it just felt very repetitive. He constantly references his own website. He constantly is like, oh, check out this that I did, sign up for my newsletter, do all these things, like, in the middle of the book. The graphs and stuff were made by, like, an 8-year-old. Like, they're so obvious. They were so pointless to me. They're too basic to the point where they don't really add anything to the story. Like, he talks about agriculture and how it was easier for people to go west to east because being on the same latitude, you typically have the same weather compared to north and south, right? Why did we need a visual representation of that? We know. Like, it just was odd to me. Like, it seemed like he was trying to fluff the book so that it would be longer, so he added in these huge pages of really unnecessary, like, visual aids. So that was kind of strange. I really didn't understand the point of most of them. And I'm a visual learner, mind you. Like, I'm a very visual person. I love having visuals in books, but they were just pointless. Like we did not need to see a visual of that, in my opinion. Like I said, I can see why people would enjoy this. I'm not saying, like, absolutely don't buy it. It was terrible. Like, I'm not saying that. I just don't understand the hype to the level that it is at. That's the thing with nonfiction, especially self-help. It's like some things just aren't going to resonate with certain people. And, like, that's okay. Like, for me, I don't think there's a lot in here that, you know, will change my life. Like, I don't think there's anything in here that will make me an entirely different person, but for some people it completely changed their life. And, like, every single self-help book, people are going to take things and not take things, and something will make something click for one person that it won't for another. And that's the thing with nonfiction self-help in particular, is, like, it's going to depend on the type of person you are, what works for you, what's actually relevant to your lifestyle, your wants, your needs, things like that. And so for me, this one just didn't do a lot. But like I said, I guess I can see how for other people it would. I watched a video on TikTok that was like, oh, Atomic Habits summed up in 60 seconds. And honestly, having just finished this book, that was almost a better done display of these ideas than this whole book. Like, this book really could have been like an email or one podcast or a 60-second TikTok video, and I got the exact same concepts that I did reading this entire thing. Take what you will from that, but read it, another one off the TBR, another one off 23, another one off my physical TBR, I guess, too. But I'm kind of disappointed in this one. I really wanted this to, like, click for me. Like I really, I needed it. I'm in a slump right now in life. I needed this to do something for me. So I'm actually really disappointed that it didn't, because everyone was like, oh, it's so life-changing. But it just didn't. Like it's not life-changing for me, and that's sad because I could have used it. So I actually might wrap up this video here and make this a two-parter, because I'm just kind of waiting at this point for like the Illuminae holds to come in from the library, Gemina and Obsidio, and it's still saying around 2 weeks, even though it's been a week since it's been saying that, so I'm kind of confused. Near the end of the year, I can have my like part 2 of this go up, where I would be reading Gemina, Obsidio, and trying to read or find 3, I think I'm at, more books off my physical TBR to finish before the end of the year. So that would be another 5. So this video is already so long that I feel like I might just split it up into 2 parts. And plus, at this point, I'm just waiting for them, like the holds to come in from the library anyways. Yeah, so I hope that you all enjoyed this video of me trying to absolutely chaotically scramble to finish my end of year goals. Definitely not gonna do that next year. So I hope that you all enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next part, if these books even come in on time, honestly.